Jason Kidd is about to be the new head coach for the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, Rick Carlisle vouched for him. He hoped he got it there.
So
I expected that.
Obviously, the news is not official yet, but we're not going to record another podcast until 5 days from now. Yeah. So might as well talk about it right now and project what's going to happen. So if Jason Kidd does in fact become the Dallas Mavericks new head coach, what do you think this does for Dallas? You know, how do you like the fit? How do you like Jason Kidd going to Dallas?
Well, I'm shocked. I mean, the fit. I know Jason Kidd and Luka have an actually really strong relationship, and I know Rick Carlisle was banking on him to get the job. But from what we've seen in the past, you know, Jason Kidd is a defensive-minded coach. I believe he has a ring with you guys.
Yeah, he's been our assistant for the last 2 years.
Yeah, so he actually was one of the defensive coaches for you guys, having one of the best defenses in the NBA.
We had the best defense, yeah.
Pardon me, you had the best. I didn't know the exact number. As I said, one of
the
best. But yeah, so from what I've known from in the past, Milwaukee was one of the best defensive teams in the league. He liked MCW a lot as a player. So from what I've seen, he's gonna bring defense to this team, and this is a team who, high powered as they are offensively, they're not that good defensively. So he's gonna bring the defense, but really, what the teams that he's had in the past, they have the personnel to play defense. I'm not 100% sure Dallas has the personnel to play elite defense.
I agree.
I know Dorian Finney-Smith is a really good defender, but Maxi Kleber, from what I've seen, is a bit of a cone to certain players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Porzingis isn't a great defender. Luka, he gives it his effort on defense, but people still hunt for him. You know, Jalen Brunson's a good defender, but he's small, so you don't know about that. Tim Hardaway Jr. is not that good of a defender. So it's about the personnel, but I think bringing in a coach, you know, that's the first step, and I think they've got their guy in bringing in the defensive coach. I think you don't need an offensive coach when you have a guy as smart as Luka on the team. So bringing in Jason Kidd, I think it's a good move so far, but it's about the personnel, and they need personnel to play elite defense.
I'm wishing the best for Jason Kidd. Hopefully he turns around his coaching career with the Dallas Mavericks. But to this point, I can't say anything but that he's been a failure as a head coach. With Brooklyn, they created a super team. He wasn't able to really live up to any expectations. Granted that they did run into the Miami Heat, but when they made that team, they were expected to go really far. They only won 44 games that year, which is an average record for a team with that much talent. Then he goes to Milwaukee. He helped develop Giannis. No doubt about it. I have no doubts about that. But you look at the record. First year, they won 41 games with him as coach.
Oh, we played them, too, in the playoffs.
His
Bulls? Yeah, we played Kids.
Kids very next year as a head coach, after his first year in Milwaukee, he won 33 games. So he dropped off. Then the very next year, they won 42. Then after that, his last season in Milwaukee, he won 23 games. And
yikes.
Jason Kidd in 2017-2018, that was his last season as a Bucks head coach. He went 23-22. Joe Prunty took over as coach that season and went 21-16. And the very next year, after the 17-18 season, Budenholzer took over, and the Bucks were the number 1 seed and finished with 60 games. So Jason Kidd has had the personnel, but he has not maximized the personnel. And even in his time in Brooklyn, he did a lot of immature things. He was, he got some DUI charges on him while being the head coach. If you're the head coach of a team, you can't get DUI charges. You have to be more responsible in your job. And with Dallas, like you mentioned, they don't have the personnel to play defense. And I think he can help Luka. But at the same time, I think Luka's already an established player. There are very few holes in his game. I would have liked to see a coach hire that is going to maximize the roster either on offense or defense. Offensively, it would have been Mike D'Antoni. To this point, Jason Kidd has not shown me he can maximize anything. So I'm not too fond of this hire. We'll wait and see. Maybe he can turn it around and prove me wrong, but I'm not too fond of this hire. I don't think it's going to help out the Dallas Mavericks much.
So I'm actually with Joel here. I'm actually kind of surprised that Jason Kidd was the hire here, but I understand it because, like Riv said, they definitely need a defensive-minded head coach, and Kidd definitely is going to bring that to the Mavericks. But like you guys said, the personnel is just not there. There's just more things that need to be done to this Mavericks team for them to have this Kidd hire make sense to me. I would have loved Kidd, like I mentioned in one of the last podcasts, to come to the Pelicans. I just feel like that fit would have been a whole lot more better, just because how similar Zion is to how Giannis was coming up, and Zion's significantly better than what Giannis was at that age. And like you mentioned, Kidd has just not done it as a head coach. He hasn't. Has he even made the playoffs as a head coach with the Nets? I think with the super
with
team.
the Nets and the Bucks, he didn't make the playoffs.
With 41.
But as a head coach, he's under 500.
Has he won a playoff series?
Yeah, he has. Yes.
Okay.
He beat Toronto?
With the Nets,
With
he
the
won
Nets,
a playoff
yeah.
series.
But I think with the Nets, it wasn't with him. It wasn't when they got upset about Chicago with Nate Robinson. He wasn't the coach that time.
It was they beat Toronto
and lost to Miami.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just feel like with Luka, with KP, Tim Hardaway, I just would have liked a coach that was more focused on offense, especially because of how offensive heavy they are. I'd understand wanting to get a defensive minded coach, especially when they're definitely lacking on that end. But why not just go all in on offense? We're seeing Atlanta go all in, honing in on offense, and it's taken them this far. Of course, they have the talent and the personnel to do it, and they're playing relatively well on defense. Our comment section was killing us, saying that we disrespected Atlanta's defense, and they're top 5 defense in this playoffs.
Talk about their top 5 defense because they played
exactly.
disrespect, but
the
a
Knicks were horrible.
Offense.
That's a fact. 76ers really weren't that efficient offensively either.
Yeah.
So
that's true. I mean, you're right, but the reason I really don't like this hire is because Kidd has not proven anywhere he can be good as a head coach.
Correct.
This is a hire strictly on resume alone. And not even resume as a coach, but resume as a player.
Correct.
Because it's Jason Kidd, because he's an all-time great point guard, they feel like he can develop Luka. But Luka is on his way to becoming an all-time great player. He doesn't need to be developed. He needs a coach that is good at coaching. And Jason Kidd is not that to me. He just isn't. And if you remember, those Bucks teams, when they made the playoffs, they were a first-round exit before Budenholzer got there. I mean, the talent they had back then, they had Giannis, they had Bledsoe, they had Brogdon, they had Middleton, and they lost to a Boston Celtics team in the first round in 7 games with no Kyrie. That was when Tatum was a rookie, and Rozier went off against Milwaukee. Like, Milwaukee before Budenholzer was a first-round exit, so say what you want to say about Budenholzer, but at least he's brought some relevance to Milwaukee. Jason Kidd, you can credit him for developing Giannis, but then again, Giannis, he put in the work himself in the gym.
No doubt.
He was getting better himself. I just don't think the Mavericks need a developmental coach. I think they need a coach that is great at schematics. I don't think that's Jason Kidd, and I think this is an out-of-touch move by Mark Cuban, and it's just showing how dysfunctional this Mavericks organization seems at the moment, because I don't think this was the right hire. I wish it would have been Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups, Mike D'Antoni, even Becky Hammond. I would have liked somebody else, not Jason Kidd. We've already seen him. He got his shot. He wasn't good.
It was PJ Carlesimo. That was that year they lost to Joakim Noah.
Seton Hall legend.
Yeah, it was that him.
PJ Carlesimo,
they
Seton
fired.
Hall legend.
He's
a Seton Hall legend.
They fired Hollins and then brought him in the middle of the season.
So actually, to go against what you're saying, Milwaukee's defense, actually, while Kidd was the coach, the only worst teams defensively, Atlanta, Orlando, Phoenix, Cleveland, Sacramento.
Sheesh.
So as a defensive-minded head coach, he wasn't
Exactly.
good.
He wasn't even that good.
That's crazy.
So it's like, really, what is he bringing to the table?
That was
with
his
the Mavericks?
identity.
The only thing that I could think of is, one, he has history with the Mavericks, of course.
and won a championship.
Of course. 2, you have Luka, who triple-double, can score the basketball. That might make them reminiscent of what Jason Kidd used to be able to do. I really don't know. So
Luka is not
what
Jason Kidd.
year are you talking
Oh,
about?
he's significantly better. The year he was fired.
Oh, because the year they made the playoffs, they were 4th in defensive rating.
Okay.
So when their defense is there, they make the playoffs.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
I just don't think this was a good move.
Yeah, it was questionable.
We'll
to
see
say
who the
least.
Mavericks sign for agency to try to make this roster better. But if they wanted to make Luka happy, I guess since he has a good relationship with Jason Kidd, I'm not sure if he does or not. But if he does, I guess this was the right move to try and appease Luka.
I just think they're trying to please him too much instead of trying to win.
I don't mind trying to please Luka too much, especially when you're trying to keep him and there's rumors of him wanting
but
out.
Sometimes pleasing your superstar isn't the best move.
But look at LeBron, dude. They didn't please LeBron, and LeBron went and dipped. It's like you don't want to lose a generational talent like that. Luka, they're
That
talking.
was 7 years later.
and he came back by a miracle of God.
Well, that was 7 years later, though. Luka's year, what, 3?
My point is, them catering to him early is not the worst decision.
I just think catering to him, though, is making them look at things too quick or making bad decisions or decisions without thinking. Like, you could have waited on getting a head coach.
Oh, I agree.
I agree. You could have done a little bit of waiting, but as soon as Rick Carlisle says, get Jason Kidd, you go get him.
When you look at the Mavericks organization and what they've been since winning the championship, it just feels like they have been out of touch. The free agency moves, the front office moves. I mean, this offseason, everything collapsed. Don Nelson leaves. Rick Carlisle leaves. Everything collapsed for them. I don't know what's wrong and what's going on, but right now it seems like Dallas is a mess.